now releasing all goblins.
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. With free weekly content and free shipping over $100, you can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. I'm also sponsored by Face to Face Games, Canada's premier Magic the Gathering store. Using the promo code MTGMudsta will get you 5% off site-wide, with eligible orders getting free shipping Canada-wide. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game's another one that we streamed, with Micah playing his Go-Shintai deck. I've brought out my new Miirym deck. Maximus is playing his Oloro deck, and new to the channel, Thomas is playing the Scarab God. Mika wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays a Terramorphic Expanse, cracking it to find a forest. I play a Polluted Delta and sacrifice it, losing 1 to find a breeding pool. Maximus gains 2 in his upkeep from Oloro and plays a Command Tower and then taps it for white for Soul Sister. Thomas has a Swamp for turn and casts a Graft Harvest. Micah plays a Mountain and pays 2 for Farseek, going into his library to find Aspara's headquarters. I just have a Snow-Covered Island and pass. Maximus gains his 2 in his upkeep and plays a Dismal Backwaters, gaining 1 as it comes in tapped. He then moves to combat, hitting Micah for 1. Thomas plays a Dimir Aqueduct, which comes in tapped, and he has to bounce his Swamp back to hand, and just passes after that. Micah plays an Eska in his main phase, and Maximus gains 1 from the Soul Sister trigger. Micah then drops a tap Xander's Lounge and passes turn. I play another Snow-Covered Island and cast Cultivate. I pass while searching for 2 Snow-Covered Mountains, putting 1 to the field and 1 to the hand. Maximus gains 2 in his upkeep and goes to combat. He hits me for 1, and then casts a Marble Diamond, which comes in tapped, and plays the land half of Malakir Mire, which also comes in tapped, and passes. Thomas plays a Swamp that he'd bounced the turn before, and is able to cast a Cemetery Reaper, which gains Maximus 1 as it comes in. He then passes to Micah. Micah plays an Arid Mesa, and casts Go-Shintai. He gets to make a Shrine token as his commander enters, which has Maximus gaining a total of 2, and then passes to me. I play a Snow-Covered Mountain and cast Ganax, Astral Hunter. As it comes in, I get a treasure token, and Maximus gains 1, and I then pass turn. Maximus gains his 2 in his upkeep, while Micah cracks the Mesa, losing 1, and goes to find a land. Maximus then casts a Veto, Throne of the Dusk Rose, and it enters, gaining him 1 from the Soul Sister, and he gets to trigger Veto, dealing 1 to Thomas. He then plays an Azorius Chancery, which comes in tapped, and bounces a land back to his hand. Thomas plays a Halimar Depths and gets to rearrange his top 3. He then plays out a Diregraph Colossus, which comes in with no counter sadly. It does gain Maximus 1 though, and he gets a Veto trigger, dealing 1 to Micah. Micah plays a Crag Crown Pathway for turn, and then moving to combat, swings at Maximus with Go-Shintai, dealing 3 commander damage. In his second main phase, he then casts Zur the Enchanter, and has enough mana for a Strionic Resonator, passing to me. My turn has me playing a Wooded Foothills, and I crack it, losing 1, to find a tap-sheltered thicket. I then play out Miirym, using the treasure to help cast it, and get to make another treasure as it comes in. Maximus gains 1 from this, and has Micah lose 1 to the Veto trigger. On Maximus's upkeep, he gains 2 from Oloro, and has the Veto trigger, deal 2 to Micah. He then taps 2 mana for an Orzhov Signet, and passes to Thomas. Thomas draws, and plays an island. He taps enough for Call of the Grave, which is unfortunately pretty rough for me. He then thinks about attacking, and goes at Maximus with a Diregraph Colossus, who takes the 3. Micah sacrifices Eska on his upkeep to the call trigger, and then plays a tap Steam Vents in his main phase. He goes to combat, swinging Zur at Maximus. He gets to tutor before damage, and goes to put to field a Honden of Rage, and gets to make a Shrine token from Go-Shintai. This has Maximus gaining 1, and he gets a veto trigger, and has Micah lose 1. Zur then connects, dealing 1. Micah then moves to his second main phase, playing out a Felwar Stone, and passing to me. I sacrifice Ganax on my upkeep, and then cast a Dragon Tempest in my main phase. I follow up with a Realm Walker, which is a changeling and therefore a dragon. I layer my triggers to get the token copy before resolving the Tempest trigger, and Maximus gains 2 life as they come in. This life gain gets him 2 veto triggers, and he has both triggers target Thomas to lose 2. I then resolve my Tempest triggers and use both on Zur, dealing 3 and then 3. I then swing Miirym at Maximus, who takes the hit for 6 commander damage, and pass turn. Maximus gains 2 life, and I lose 2 to the veto trigger on his upkeep. He then sacrifices the Soul Sister to the call trigger. He then pays 6, 3 of which is black mana, for Bolas' Citadel. He casts Elenda off the top, losing 4 life, and then loses 5 further to cast Sanguine Bond, which is basically a second veto. He then casts an Underworld Connections, and enchants it onto a land, losing 3. He plays a Plains off the top as well as his land for turn, and then loses 2 more life, casting Swiftfoot Boots. He looks at his top card again, and loses 1 life to cast an Erebos' Intervention, where X is 0, just to get it off the top. He then casts a Soul Ring, losing 1 more, and then a Sun Droplet, losing 2 more. He then loses more life to cast a Beacon of Immortality, but gets to double his life total. This has the added benefit of triggering both Veto and the Bond, and he has Mika and I losing 27 life each. He then loses 6 more life to cast a Pontiff of Blight off the top, which gives all of his creatures Extort. This puts Micah and I in a very dangerous spot, and he then pays to equip Veto with the Swiftfoot Boots, protecting him and passing. Thomas draws, and we're hoping for a board wipe. Thomas, if you're sitting on like a board wipe or something, you are welcome and encouraged.
Yeah.
He plays a Swamp for turn, and then casts a Dimir Locket, and has to pass. Micah gets his Honden trigger on his upkeep, and the call trigger goes on top of that. He responds to the call trigger, activating the Strionic Resonator, to copy the Honden trigger, and has it deal damage to Elenda. She dies, and Maximus gains a 1/1 Vampire token. Micah then sacrifices a Shrine token to the call trigger, and his second Honden trigger deals 3 to my real Realm Walker. He then draws for turn. He then taps enough mana in his main phase for a Genesis Storm, which I believe is the first time I've ever seen it on the channel, and he gets a copy of it because he's cast his commander once. His first copy hits a Klothys, and the second trigger then hits Sanctum of All, making him another shrine as it comes in. With nothing else, he passes. On my upkeep, because I'm bad, I forget to sacrifice a creature until my main phase, and cast a Jade Orb of Dragonkind first. At this point I cast the Mist Call trigger, but compound my embarrassment further by mistakenly sacrifice a Realm Walker, which, you'll note, is actually a zombie because of Changeling. I then use the mana I have left to cast a Terror of the Peaks, making a token copy of it, which the original sees and triggers from. I have all the damage go at Maximus' face, plus the Tempest triggers as well. My terrors have haste, and I go to combat and swing them at Maximus for 11. At this point he's going into his dice bag to find enough d6s to put on the droplet, and I pass turn. Maximus doesn't want to waste the time on the dice and gains 2 life, and has the Bond trigger and Veto trigger go on Thomas, having him lose 4. He then plays a Fetid Heath, and at this point I've helped him with the dice to help put onto his droplet finally. He then loses 5 to cast a Shattered Angel off the top of his library, and extorts it with 4 of his creatures. This has him draining us each for 4 and gaining 12 life. He gets the Sanguine Bond and Veto trigger, and has Thomas lose 12 life twice, and then needs only tap the Citadel and sacrifice 10 permanents to hat-trick kill the table all at once. Game review time. So this was one of my more quicker games where I think it came in at just under 40 minutes. I think in this case though, Maximus's deck showed so well how powerful Bolas's Citadel is, and I love the synergy with Veto and the Sanguine Bond and the Beacon of Immortality. His deck performed very well, and it was all up to chance because Bolas's Citadel only allows you to play off the top, and he didn't have any top deck manipulation or tutors. Thomas's first appearance on the channel unfortunately was not the strongest showing, but he did play the Scarab God again, and it was significantly better and much more threatening, so be sure to look forward to that in the future. Mike's Go-Shintai deck seems an awful lot like most of the ones that I see. Apparently he's got some sweet tech pieces we didn't get to see, so hopefully they'll come out in future games. There are so many cards that I need to test more of in Miirym. I feel like Ganax is a very strong card considering how many treasure tokens I could possibly get from casting dragons, and I want to try and experiment with a few more changelings to see if I can help blast more things with Dragon Tempest. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.